Que pasa, mi amigos? Nima here. Today I want to talk about the best indie games of 2022 so far. And for the most part, these games are available on the Nintendo Switch. There's a couple that are multi-platform, and some that are exclusively to the Xbox. Actually, just one. Anyway, I love indie games because you can buy 3-4 indie games for the same price you can of a massive AAA title, and you get much better games usually. There's some exceptions, of course, but for the most part, you're gonna get a game with a lot of heart, a lot of passion from developers that have a vision and have a goal of being successful in the video game industry, and so they're going to work their butts off compared to some other companies, not naming names, like, I don't know, EA or Ubisoft, who just kind of phone it in game after game after game and still make like millions of dollars off of them compared to these other indie games. So I just wanted to talk about, we're almost at that like halfway point of the year. Not completely, but we don't count December apparently in the game industry, so we're almost there. And I just wanted to go over some of the best of 2022 so far. Now, I've got a few honorary mentions that didn't actually make like the top 10, but I do like them and I think they're worth at least some sort of notoriety. That's starting off with RPGolf or RPGolf. It's a great game. It's pretty basic and simple. Like, it doesn't really have like the best golf mechanics. It doesn't have the best RPG mechanics or adventure hack and slash type mechanics, but it does meld the two worlds pretty well, and it's a fun game. Like, again, I wouldn't say it's going to be in the top 10, but it's something that if you find, relatively cheap, it's definitely worth a pickup. The other honorary mention is tERRORbane. tERRORbane is amazing. Like, the first 4 or 5 hours are simply, I don't know, they're very creative, very unique, something I've never seen. And again, like, that first 4 or 5 hours is amazing, but the game ends up kind of overstaying its welcome, if you will. And I understand where it was trying to go and where the developers and creators, they wanted to make a worthwhile game, but it does start to get repetitive and starts to lose its inertia. Number 10 on the list almost didn't make it at number 10. There was definitely some jostling between tERRORbane and number 10, which is Kraken Academy. The reason why Kraken Academy is on the list is because it's one of those games that really kept me engaged. Now, it is like an interactive story where you basically make a lot of decisions and you kind of solve puzzles. For the most part, I would say it falls along those lines of like puzzle solving simulation type game. A few boss battles here and there, but it's pretty uninvolved when it comes to combat. But it was a really fun game and I definitely enjoyed my time with it. Now, number 9 on the list is a game called Headland that I don't think a lot of people have heard of. It's a well-kept secret. Headland is an action-adventure hack and slash type game where your main objective is to basically stop the corruption and bring the world back to the way it's supposed to be. But by doing this, you're going to have to explore some dungeons, you're going to have to upgrade your own power, upgrade your skills and your weapons, and each one of these has a different little obstacle to overcome. For instance, to upgrade your own skills, you have to go into kind of a gauntlet style of mass enemies, and at the end of it, you get a skill raise or a new skill in general. And then with your weapons as well, it depends on how much material that you collect and what you can do with it from there. Number 8 on the list is a game that I've recently reviewed, and a really fun game called The Last Friend, which is a tower defense / beat 'em ups game where you roam around the wasteland essentially saving dogs and stopping a group of bandits from hurting animals and I guess trying to take over the world. I don't exactly know what their other aspect is. I beat the game and I still don't really know what they were trying to do, but it's a really fun game. Super involved, probably one of the most interactive tower defense games I've ever played, and one that has like some of the most options. Like, they really give you just a ton of abilities and a ton of skills in the beat 'em up style and in the tower defense to kind of handle the bosses however you see fit, or handle the enemies however you see fit, and the waves of different enemies coming at you. You have a bunch of different options, and I think that's really cool. They put a lot of that into there. The only downside to this game is you have a lot of options, you have a lot of strategies that you can implement, but you don't really need them. Number 7 on the list is Gata Protector's Cart of Darkness. I've talked about this game recently as well. This game is just pure chaos. It's super, super fun. You have an array of different characters that you can portray, each having their own skills, their own abilities. You put your princess in a castle, which your castle castle has treads that goes on a rail, and your castle is to make it to the other castle and smash into it and destroy it. But along the way, enemies try to attack your castle, and so you, as your queen's protector, are fighting off all the hordes and hordes of enemies. This game sounds crazy. It is crazy, but it is so much fun. And there's a lot of growth with this game as well that I really enjoy. I like the aspect of taking on each different character, learning their style, upgrading their style, and continuing to grow and expand. Not to mention, the multiplayer is really fun in this as well. Number 6 is Korans Crypt. This game is super creative, super just ingenious in the way that this game engulfs you into its world, where you're meant to be playing a game while you're playing a game through the lens of a Game Boy Advance. Now, this is amazing. Even the music pulls you in to take to back in the day when you were playing on a Game Boy Advance. And the thing about the actual game itself is it's really cool. So you play as Death, if you will. You play as a spirit where you possess enemies that you kill, and you use these enemies to tackle puzzles and to beat other enemies and to try to traverse this crypt that you're now in. This is a game I spent just a ton of time playing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, number 5 is another game that does require a lot of time, and that game is Dismantle. I talked about this recently as well. This is more of a action-adventure game set pretty much after a nuclear fallout or some kind of tragedy that happens that wiped out a lot of people. So you're left with a bunch of mutants, zombie-type creatures, and an entire world that can literally be remade for your purposes, meaning everything is destructible. Homes, fences, cars, even at some point, like everything becomes destructible, and then you can rebuild it as a weapon, as something that you want and you need. There's a ton of area to this map, a lot of bosses, a lot of secrets to find. In fact, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't beat this game yet. I've played it very, very sporadically lately, and I want to get more into it, but the game itself is a lot of fun. I put in about like 20 hours, and I'm just really detailed into looking into everything, and maybe once things calm down I can actually finish the game. Now, number 4 on my list is Nobody Saves the World. This game is phenomenal. It has been remarked as like maybe the best indie of the year. I would disagree, obviously, but it is a really, really good game. You play as Nobody, this androgynous, pale little being who can take the shape of anything from a dragon to a snail to a rat. Each one having their own skills, abilities, and things that you can interchange with other characters. So you can kind of make, to say, a horse that can also spit water, and vice versa. There's a ton of different varieties and opportunities for you to create like a perfect fighting machine. And each one of them has a lot to offer, and many of them are dictated upon what creatures you're going to have to fight. Like, meaning you're going to run into enemies that have the ability to be immune to damage unless a certain type of damage is put upon them, like poison type damage. So you're going to have to turn to any of your forms that have poison damage, that then you can then hurt that enemy. And it's essentially like a dungeon crawler. Very, very long, kind of difficult game, but it's a lot of fun. It's like so much fun. I thoroughly enjoy it. Number 3 is a game that is close to my heart, and that game is Tunic. This game is basically an homage to the Legend of Zelda games from way back in the day. It does do its own thing, don't get me wrong, but if you have that love for those 3D Legend of Zelda games, I should have said 2D, sorry, the top-down Legend of Zelda games, this is a lot like that. Obviously, better graphics, more abilities, you're a fox, there's other, and it does have more of a 3D aspect to it as well, but it's almost like if somebody took Link to the Past and brought it to the future. Definitely a different world. Like, I'm not saying it's gonna be exactly like Legend of Zelda, but you can definitely see the connection that the developers had, and I thoroughly enjoy this game. This is another one I haven't beaten yet. I'm excited to. It's just one of those games that, like, I want to take my time and I want to enjoy it. Now, number 2 and number 1 are interchangeable to me. They are both very close to my heart, and I love the heck out of both of them. So it's just kind of a coin flip, and that's what I did. Number 2 is Imp of the Sun. Now, this game is so much like a Metroidvania style game. It's that 2D side-scrolling. I would almost actually more compare it, though, to like like Hollow Knight, it has more of the components of the bosses and the ability to upgrade and that sort of mechanic that we love in Hollow Knight, as well as like almost at some point feeling like you can basically fly around the screen. You can't exactly do that in Castlevania or Metroid, but I love this game. Everything down from the music, the graphics, the enemies, the culture. I just simply love the hell out of this game, and it's the first game that has gotten me to actually play from start to finish a Metroidvania game and really enjoy it. I enjoyed like Metroid Dread, but it just, I don't know, it didn't have it for me like Imp of the Sun does. So number one is another game that, like I said, this could be interchangeable. This one brought me back. This one took me to that first time I played The Legend of Zelda, Link Between Worlds, and I could see just this wondrous like environment and world that I wanted to explore, the dungeons that I wanted to solve puzzles in and to upgrade abilities and to unlock different skills. And that's exactly what Ocean Hearts did for me. I absolutely love Ocean Hearts. This game is so amazing. Max Mraz worked his butt off on this game. You can see the love, the passion. Coming from one guy, by the way, which is insane. This game is one that I think is super slept on, namely because I think it does have a lot of those similarities to The Legend of Zelda, and it sure does, and he loves Legend of Zelda. So, you know, it's not a slight to say that, but he also builds upon it. It's not just a Legend of Zelda clone. It is by far its own game. Has a pretty engaging story, but gives you that ability to kind of disengage with the story and go off and explore and to find your own world, but it gives you direction, and that's what's important, as well as the ability to upgrade, of course, your weapons and your equipment and your skills, and to just explore and beat a bunch of enemies and find yourself in weird places that you didn't even see yourself going into, and just going further into dungeons, into shrines, and unlocking things and fighting bosses. There's so many different types of bosses and enemies in this game. I absolutely love Ocean's Heart. I can't wait for them to make a sequel. But anyway, that's my list. I'm kind of curious what your guys' are. Sorry, this video went way longer than I thought, but there's a lot to say about all of these games, and some of them I still don't feel like I said enough. I think I kind of let some of them down, but I didn't want this to be like a 20-minute video. But yeah, I'm curious, like, what games did I miss? What indies are you interested in? Have you guys played any of these? Which ones are your favorites on the list? And yeah, and definitely let me know which ones I may have missed, because that's there's so many good indie games out there. It's hard to just pinpoint a few. If you made it this far, I super appreciate you guys. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And like always, I'm wishing you health, wealth, and beyond all, I hope you are truly happy. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend.